What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Educated Barfly. Today we're going to tackle the 50-50 cocktail and the proper gin martini. Actually, I'm going to teach you how to make a proper gin martini on the drier side, but I'm also going to talk about the 50-50 cocktail, and it's going to be a little bit longer of a episode because I will really kind of want to dive in on the history a little bit, because this is such a misunderstood drink, such a contested recipe that everyone's got ideas about, and there is a lot of mucking about with this cocktail over time. So, nobody really knows when the martini was created. There are claims that date all the way back to 1863. There are some claims that it was created in 1911. And honestly, if you want to go on a deep dive, which I don't want to get like bogged down in that because I could seriously talk about that for an hour, you can read, there's a great chapter on it in David Wondrich's book Imbibe. So if you really want to dive into, basically he broke it down into 4 stories which are the most likely. One of them being that it came out of the Martinez, which we've already done. And there are some other really interesting claims, and you should definitely check it out. So pick up Imbibe and check that out. I am going to teach you the martini as I know it, and I'm going to teach you the history as I understand it. So as I understand it, the martini started its life as what we now call a 50-50 cocktail. It was purportedly first published in 1912 in the Hoffman House Bartender's Guide. And what that was basically a recipe with 3 to 4 dashes of orange bitters, 1.5 ounces of dry vermouth, 1.5 ounces of gin, stirred, strained with an orange twist. As time moved on, martinis became drier. Right? And this is where we get into some of the kind of contesting ideas on a martini. So as time moved on, the martini became a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning that it became a drier gin martini. So a drier martini means something that's heavier on the gin. And that 2-to-1 ratio would be 2 ounces of gin, 1.5 ounces, not 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces of gin, 1 ounce of dry vermouth, 4 dashes of orange bitters, and an orange twist, which is my preferred martini. Nowadays, there's a lot of 9-to-1 martinis, 5-to-1 martinis. People say martinis are made with vodka. But I will say that if you go into a proper cocktail bar and you order a martini and you just say, I want a martini, do not expect something to come back to you with vodka. It's going to have gin in it, because a martini was historically and is still, in my opinion, a gin cocktail. That being said, in the 1940s, the Smirnoff company wanted to unseat gin as the clear spirit of choice in this country, and they did it with a Moscow Mule and B with vodka martinis. The other thing that I think I have a theory about is that Americans are dubious of drinking vermouth, and I think that the reason why is because vermouth has a very storied history in Europe. People drink vermouth all the time. It is used as what's called an aperitif, which is something that you use to wet your palate and before you eat your food, and people drink it all the time. What I think Americans didn't understand is that vermouth is made out of wine. It's fortified wine macerated with botanical elements and spices and citric elements like peels and things. And so you need to keep it in the fridge. So a lot of times you'll be going over to your friend's house. They'll say, hey, do you want a Manhattan or do you want a martini? And they'll pull their 2-year-old bottle of vermouth from their bar cart or whatever, and they make it. And what they don't understand is that once you oxidize that vermouth, you've lit a fuse on it. You've got to, first of all, if you leave it outside, because it's wine, it's going to go bad. If you leave it outside the fridge, for that matter, it's going to go bad. And then also, even if you have it on the fridge, you only have about a month, maybe a month and a half tops before that vermouth is done, and you've got to move on. So you should be using fresh vermouth. And I think that just a long history of making things with bad vermouth is why this cocktail got a bad reputation. Okay, that's my spiel about the martini. Now let's get into making it. You're going to see that I have 2 different types of bitters here. The reason why is because I like to use, and I thought I was the guy that invented this, but evidently I'm not the guy that invented this, and it has a name. It's called Fegans, because you're using a couple dashes of Fees and a couple dashes of Regan's bitters, and for me that is the best mix of orange bitters. It gives you the best flavor. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to do 1-ish dash of Fees, which is going to be from navel oranges, so it's going to be a little bit sweeter. I mean bitter, but on the sweeter type. And then 2 dashes of Regan's, which is going to be on a spicier tip because they use a different style of orange in the production. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our dry vermouth, which I just got at the store, so it's nice and fresh, and we're just going to add 1 ounce to our stirring glass. And then, because I love it and I think it makes one of the best martinis, and it is my preference, we are going to be using Plymouth gin. And we're going to do 2 ounces of Plymouth gin. And that is all. We are going to add our ice. We like to use big pieces of ice. We want to make sure that we can kind of lock that chill down. So, I mean, this seems a little, you know what, maybe I'll just crack this one a little bit. Crack it a little more, maybe. Yeah, I'll just add that in, like that. And then we're just going to stir it. Now, the higher quality the ice, the denser the ice, the longer you have to stir it. So it could take a little while, but you could always gauge dilution and chill by just looking at the condensation on the outside of the stirring glass. Let's see, how are we doing? And it can take a little while to stir. It's getting there, it's getting there. All right, I think that's sufficiently chilled, you guys. So then, I'm gonna put in our, try and run away, center our glass and strain our cocktail. And then, because we're doing a traditional gin martini, we're going to use an orange peel. We're just going to spritz it. I like to give a little rub around and on the stem. And there you have it, my friends, the proper gin martini. All right. Now here's the thing. When I'm bartending and I see a peel up on here, the reason why you leave the peel there is because you're getting on your nose and you want to smell that citrus as you drink. Kind of informs your flavor, since, you know, flavor is about 80% scent. You really want to do that. I really don't like it when people discard it. I like to sometimes put it in there, but some people argue that it makes it a little too bitter because you've got the pith in your drink. So I like to put it on top like that. All right, let's figure this out. Dry. You've got the orange bitters. It's a little bit bitter on the finish. It's dry. It's really, really flavorful. The vermouth really plays into the flavor profile of the gin really nicely. I mean, this is one of my favorite cocktails. It's like such a light, crisp, clean, hot weather cocktail. It's brilliant. So you guys should definitely make it at home. And here you are, my friends, the proper gin martini.